Amancio Ortega is not a superhero. Born in poverty, a boy from nothing. Amancio Ortega was born in 1936, in a small town called Bustongo de Arbas, in northern Spain. He came into the world during a time of hardship. The Spanish Civil War had just ended. Poverty was everywhere. His family had very little. His father worked as a railway worker. It was a modest job, with a modest income. Amancio's mother was a maid. The family of 5 lived in a simple home with no electricity or running water. They could not afford luxuries. Often, they could barely afford food. At age 14, Ortega dropped out of school. Not by choice, but out of necessity. He needed to help his family survive. He moved with his family to the port city of A Coruña. There, he found work as a delivery boy at a local shirt shop. He carried fabrics and garments through the streets, visiting tailors and wealthy clients. It was hard work. But Ortega paid attention. He watched how shirts were made. He listened to what customers liked and didn't like. He learned how long it took to produce and deliver clothes. And most of all, he noticed something crucial. Fashion was slow, expensive, and designed only for the rich. That insight stayed with him. He didn't have money. He didn't have a degree. But he had curiosity, hunger, and the eyes of a quiet observer. He was about to turn those into something the world had never seen. Learning from the bottom, years of silent study. For most people, delivering clothes was just a job. For Amancio Ortega, it was a classroom. He soon began working inside the shop that made the clothes. The store was called La Maya, a small tailor's workshop that made luxury shirts and robes for wealthy clients. He didn't just watch. He asked questions. He learned to sew. He learned to cut fabric, match patterns, and assemble garments. He studied every detail of the process. From materials to measurements, from style to stitching. While others chatted or waited for instructions, Ortega observed. He understood that design wasn't enough. Speed mattered. Cost mattered. Customers didn't want to wait months for their orders. The shop taught him the craft of clothing. But the streets taught him the market. He saw which fabrics were too expensive. He noticed which colors sold faster. He tracked the difference between what designers imagined and what people actually bought. By his early 20s, Ortega knew more about fashion production than most people with degrees. And still, no one noticed him. He was just another quiet worker in the back of a workshop. But inside, he had a vision. Not of fashion for the elite, but of clothes for everyone. Made faster. Sold directly. At a price people could afford. He didn't say much. He didn't write business plans. But he was planning something no one else dared to imagine. Taking the first risk, family and first workshop. By the early 1970s, Amancio Ortega had spent nearly 2 decades in the clothing trade. He had saved a small amount of money. He had a growing network of suppliers. And he had one big idea. He wanted to start his own clothing line. Not for the wealthy, but for ordinary people. He didn't have a retail background. He didn't have investors. He didn't have a brand. But he had something else. A deep understanding of what people wanted and what the industry was missing. With his wife, Rosalia Mera, who was a seamstress, Ortega set up a small workshop in their home. Together, they began making quilted bathrobes, a simple product, but with Ortega's trademark twist. Fast, affordable, and directly sold to shops. The robes sold well. He reinvested the profits. Expanded the range. Hired a few more workers. And in 1975, he took his boldest step yet. He opened his first store in downtown A Coruña. He called it Zara. The name was chosen quickly. Zorba was his first idea, but it was taken. So he settled on Zara. He didn't hire marketing experts. He didn't run ads. He simply put clothes in the window, trendy, affordable, and updated constantly. Customers came. Then came back. And told their friends. The model worked. Ortega realized something powerful. If you control production, you can move faster. If you move faster, you can serve better. And if you serve better, you don't need to advertise, the customer becomes your voice. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't fashionable. But it was brilliant. And it was just the beginning. Building Zara, speed over luxury. Most fashion brands worked in seasons. Designers created collections months in advance. Factories produced in bulk. Stores placed orders early, hoping to guess what would sell. Amancio Ortega saw the flaws in this system. It was slow. It was rigid. It wasted money on unsold inventory. He believed there was a better way. Instead of predicting fashion, why not react to it instantly? At Zara, Ortega flipped the model upside down. His stores didn't wait for seasons. They watched trends daily. If something sold well, they made more. If something didn't, they stopped production immediately. Designs were created in-house. Production was done locally, not overseas. Clothes went from concept to store in as little as 2 weeks, unheard of at the time. Customers came in not once a season, but twice a month. Because they knew new clothes would appear constantly. Zara didn't advertise. Didn't use celebrity endorsements. Didn't follow the fashion elite. It followed real people. On the street. In everyday life. This approach, which Ortega never called fast fashion, became the foundation of his empire. He wasn't trying to impress the fashion world. He was trying to outserve it. And while others focused on branding and image, Ortega focused on logistics. Short supply chains. Daily feedback from stores. Data-driven production. Speed above all. By the late 1980s, Zara had expanded across Spain. Then into Portugal, then France, then the rest of Europe. Customers didn't know who founded Zara. But they knew the clothes fit. Looked good. And were affordable. Behind it all was a man who never appeared in ads. Never gave interviews. And still wore the same clothes he sold. But his quiet revolution was gaining momentum faster than anyone could imagine. Inditex, empire of brands. Zara was only the beginning. By the 1990s, Amancio Ortega had developed a system, one that didn't just work, it scaled. He decided to formalize it under a larger company. Inditex, short for Industria de Diseño Textil. Zara was the flagship, but Ortega wasn't interested in just one brand. He created or acquired others to serve different tastes and age groups. Massimo Dutti, refined informal clothing. Pull and Bear, casual, youthful fashion. Bershka, edgy and trendy for young women. Stradivarius, Oysho, Uturk. Zara Home, each with a clear niche. All followed the same formula. Control the supply chain. React faster than competitors. Keep design and production close. Let stores report what customers really want. While luxury brands planned years ahead, Inditex turned feedback into products in weeks. While others outsourced to Asia. Inditex kept much of its production in Spain and nearby countries. While rivals spent millions on marketing, Inditex spent on logistics. Their distribution center in Tycoon became legendary. Clothes moved through it like clockwork, from design sketch to hanger in under 15 days. And Ortega stayed involved. He visited stores anonymously. He watched customer behavior. He studied reports in silence. There were no luxury offices. No flashy meetings. Just discipline. Under his leadership, Inditex grew into the largest fashion retailer in the world. Zara had become a global name, from Tokyo to New York, from malls in Paris to side streets in Vietnam. But Ortega never changed his routine. He still lived in Galicia. Still ate lunch at the same cafe. Still walked to work. The man behind the empire refused to act like a king. Because to him, business wasn't about image. It was about getting things done faster. Smarter, better. Billionaire in silence. By the 2000s, Amancio Ortega had become one of the richest people in the world. Not just in Spain, in all of Europe. Sometimes, even the world's richest man. And yet, outside the fashion industry, few even knew his name. He avoided interviews. He didn't attend fashion shows. He didn't give speeches. He didn't build a personal brand. There were no selfies. No TED Talks. No memoirs. Ortega believed in anonymity over attention. Let the product speak. Let the system win. Let the customer decide. He famously said, "You must appear behind your work." Even inside the company, he was quiet. He never had a formal office. He didn't use a computer. He spoke directly to people. Walked the halls. Observed. He wore Zara clothes. A simple white shirt. Gray blazer. Dark slacks. The same look every day, as if to remind everyone, consistency wins. He had no security entourage. He ate in the company cafeteria. He walked through stores unnoticed. And while his competitors fought for headlines, Ortega built a global empire in near silence. His net worth passed $50 billion. He bought skyscrapers in Madrid, London, New York. He became Spain's largest real estate owner, quietly. But he never acted like a billionaire. No yachts. No shows. No ego. For Ortega, business wasn't theater. It was a tool. A discipline. A way to turn observation into opportunity without noise. Values and legacy. For Amancio Ortega, success was never just about sales or expansion. It was about values. He built Inditex with a philosophy that was simple but powerful. Treat people like long-term partners, not short-term tools. He never took his company public to get rich. He did it to grow while giving his workers a share of the success. Thousands of his employees received stock options. Many who started as cashiers or tailors became managers and directors. Loyalty was rewarded not with words, but with opportunity. Inside Inditex, Ortega emphasized humility and performance. Titles didn't matter. Outcomes did. He didn't believe in flashy headquarters or endless meetings. He believed in walking the store floors. Asking customers. Listening to feedback. He led by example. Not by pressure. And when he finally stepped down as chairman, he chose a quiet successor from inside, not a celebrity CEO. Outside of business, Ortega quietly donated hundreds of millions to causes close to his heart. Public hospitals in Spain. Cancer research. Education programs. Support for people with disabilities. He created the Amancio Ortega Foundation, focused on social welfare, not promotion. He gave back with the same mindset he built with. No noise. No recognition. Just impact. Today, millions wear his clothes, work in his stores, and live better because of his systems. And most of them still don't know what his voice sounds like. But they feel his legacy in the jobs he created, the values he practiced, and the standard he set. A standard that said, you don't have to shout to lead. You don't have to show off to win. You just have to be excellent, quietly, consistently, completely. How you can think like Amancio Ortega. You don't need to be loud to lead. You don't need a famous name to build a billion-dollar business. You don't even need a college degree. What you need is how Amancio Ortega thinks. 1. Start with what you have. He didn't wait for the perfect plan or the perfect moment. He started with bathrobes, sewing at home. No investors. No office. No fame. Just one product that solved one problem, and he built from there. If you wait to be ready, you'll never start. Start small. But start well. 2. Watch more than you talk. Ortega was not a speaker. He was an observer. He watched customers. He studied their behavior. He noticed what competitors missed. You don't need to say much if you understand more than others. 3. Control the process, not just the product. Most fashion companies outsourced everything. Ortega built an integrated system. From design to delivery, he owned the steps. That's how Zara moved faster, wasted less, and served better. If you want to grow, don't just think what, think how. 4. Speed wins. Not perfection. Zara didn't have the best fabrics. Or the most innovative designs. But it had the fastest feedback loop in fashion. Get your product into the world. Let the market tell you what works. Then improve it fast. 5. Stay grounded, no matter how high you go. Ortega never wore luxury. He never stopped walking to work. He never forgot the worker he once was. Because success isn't a reason to act different. It's a reason to stay real. Final thought. Amancio Ortega didn't win because he shouted louder. He won because he listened better. Moved faster. Served clearer. He rose from poverty not by dreaming big, but by executing small things better than anyone else. And you can do the same. You don't need more talent. You need more consistency. You don't need big ideas. You need fast action. And you don't need applause. You just need purpose and the discipline to follow through. That's how you build a legacy. Quietly. Powerfully. Permanently. And Amancio Ortega is not a superhero.